automotive and transportation practice for Frost & Sullivan. He's got 15 years worth of strategic consulting and market research experience focused on the automotive industry. He's previously worked at both OEM and Tier 1 supplier level as well. He's a regular speaker at events, so very much looking forward to hear what he has to say. His presentation this morning will cover the promotion and consumer awareness, education and training for electric vehicles.
Thank you, Akin, for a wonderful introduction. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning again. Not audible? Okay. A very good morning again. Yesterday we've seen a lot of presentations on the policy side, the regulation side. Now, maybe the next few presentations as well, we'll see a different perspective. And what do we mean by that? The consumer perspective. At the end of the day, every OEM who manufactures cars has to sell them, right? So it's very important to understand what the customers think, what the customers perceive about electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and most importantly, their willingness to pay. How much are the customers willing to pay for an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle? So let's take a look at that. I'll quickly talk about a little about intelligent mobility. What is intelligent mobility, right? And then we'll talk about the consumer perspective, right? So 2 sessions to this presentation. So what is intelligent mobility? Now, if you look at this slide, on the left side, you have the consumer perspective, right? That means the users of vehicles are becoming more and more intelligent. That means we've got families, individuals, communities becoming part of the vehicle decision or buying or purchase behavior, right? If you look at the average consumer today, let's say a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old, a car is not just a mode of commute from one place to another. It's a part of their lifestyle. So they identify a little bit more with their car, right? Today we have much better human-machine interface. You have connectivity. Yesterday one of the presenters spoke about connected car or connected vehicle. Connectivity today is one of the hottest points in the automotive industry, right? So the customer perceptions or the demand is changing or it's evolving. Now if you look at the right half of this slide, it is the supply side, which is the manufacturer side, which is the provider side. Here you can see there are a lot of different stakeholders who are coming into the picture. Earlier, it was just the vehicle manufacturer. Today, we have infrastructure providers, government. Yesterday, we saw a lot of representatives from the government speak about how they intend to improve the air quality, for example. Engineer Farhad talked about improving air quality. So we have different stakeholders from government as well coming into the picture. So putting these two together, we have an intelligent mobility ecosystem, right? When we say an ecosystem, it involves multiple stakeholders, right? From consumers to government authorities to the regulatory authorities to the manufacturers and consumers, of course. So this forms an intelligent mobility ecosystem, right? Here we see integrated mobility. What is integrated mobility, right? Again, going back to what I spoke about a few seconds ago, we've got different business models coming up. If you see the European market, a little bit of the Indian market as well, we've got car sharing, carpooling, ride sharing, bike sharing, all new different models. Now, why have these new business models come up? Simply because the consumer's usage of vehicles is changing. And hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles will play, sorry, I have a bad throat, will play a very, very important role going forward. For example, we've got micro-mobility solutions, right? E-mobility, integrated mobility, ride sharing, car sharing, Kaushik, today companies are encouraging their employees to share vehicles, to pool with vehicles as well. Thank you very much. Thanks. So, business models, new business models will be the most important factor going forward. OEMs will adopt new business models. So gone are the days of OEMs just manufacturing and selling cars. Today it's about new business models. And that is driven by the consumer. Right? So, how have the mobility solutions evolved? Traditionally, this was the model, right? Car ownership. You go to a dealer or a retailer, you choose a vehicle, you buy it, right? And they don't worry about financing. How do I pay for this vehicle? You take a loan, you get finance from a bank, and then maintenance, of course. You have to pay money for your annual upkeep, your registrations, your MOT, and so on. So this was the traditional model. Today, we are here in the second block. We are looking at car sharing, ride sharing, pay as you go, pay as you use services. Automated driving, right? So we are here today. So car is becoming a service. Car is not a product anymore, not just a product anymore, it's a service, right? In the future, so this was traditional, we are here, and in the future, it will be car independent. Car will become just a small part of your entire mobility, integrated mobility or intelligent mobility ecosystem. And that will mean involvement of multiple stakeholders. Like we saw, government authorities, regulatory authorities, ministries, and also utility providers, your energy providers, your electricity suppliers, your water suppliers, for example, city planners, for example. So in the future, we will see a lot more stakeholders becoming involved in intelligent mobility. So that is future mobility. So it is going to be independent of a car. It's not just a car anymore. Right? Dubai, there are a lot of discussions that are happening today, to convert Dubai as a smart city. We spoke about that yesterday as well. So definitely some great potential here in the future for Dubai to set the standard in the Middle Eastern region. Right? This is a very, very interesting slide, on how the global powertrain is split by diesel, gasoline, flex fuel vehicles, hybrids, electric vehicles, and so on. So if you look at this, totally we are looking at about 75 million vehicles for these regions. If you look at countries like China, North America, huge share of gasoline engines. Diesels, hybrids, electric vehicles hardly make an impact there, right? Of course, if you look at Europe, there's a huge share of diesel. Of course, it's going down as well. But here, this region, again, is dominated by gasoline engines. 95% is still gasoline. So that means there are two ways of looking at it, right? It's a huge potential for electric and hybrid vehicles to grow in the future because they occupy less than 3 or 4% of the entire market. Immense potential, right? So if you look at this here, a global comparison, diesel doesn't seem to have much of popularity here in the Middle Eastern market, right? So hybrids and EVs are very popular. Gasoline is going to be fairly stable. Of course, CNG and flex fuel vehicles will also see some increased interest during the coming years, right? A lot of investments happening for fleet owners, taxi owners, and so on. CNG and alternate fuel vehicles might be an interesting proposition as well, right? So now, I'll take you through a few slides on consumer perception. This is a study we did very recently in Europe. We plan to do a similar study for this market as well. So you can see what kind of output you can expect for this region as well. Right? So, sorry, it's a bit busy. I apologize for that. Just to give you an idea, the total sample size was a little over 2,000, spread across France, Germany, UK, and Italy, by different segments, by age, by gender, and by area. So we've tried to have a fairly good mix by all demographics, by all purchasing behavior, right? So what does the results say. How do you read a slide? It's very simple. At the bottom, we have the question that was asked during the survey. And in the middle, we have the main pictorial representation of the finding, and on top, you have the summary. Very simple. So the question was, how likely are you to consider a hybrid engine, right, for your next vehicle purchase? Simple question. 41% of the people said they will consider a hybrid engine. A few years ago, when we did the study in 2012, in 2010, this share was less than 20%. It's grown now to 41%. That means people are more open, are more willing to consider a hybrid vehicle, right? And what kind of hybrid engine? Interestingly, the highest preference was for a diesel PHEV. Even when we did a study in 2012, it was diesel PHEV, but back then, a diesel PHEV didn't exist, right? So in people's minds, it's very simple. They know diesel is more economical and hybrid electric vehicle is environmentally friendly. They just put the two of them together, right? And they prefer a diesel PHEV. Diesel PHEVs today, even today, there are very, very few OEMs who have a diesel PHEV on offer simply because it's quite expensive as a technology and as a solution. Nevertheless, people still want to buy a diesel PHEV, right? And this is a very, very interesting slide. We asked them, please indicate the importance or influence, that you're going to look at when you purchase a hybrid vehicle in the future. We offered them a lot of options. Right on top is reliability, durability, and price. Yesterday, we had a lot of presenters talk about how to minimize range anxiety for potential hybrid and electric vehicle consumers. Even now, that is still one of the top concerns. People still are not very sure about how reliable can an electric vehicle be. Will I be stranded in the middle of the road when I'm traveling, let's say from Dubai to Abu Dhabi? Can I trust an electric vehicle? Can I trust a hybrid vehicle? That is still a top concern. Very interesting point that was made by one of the presenters yesterday, that a lot of electric and hybrid vehicle buyers are not really buying it for the environmental friendliness, and that is reflected here. The eco-friendly factor is not among the top considerations at all. Today, all the OEMs are bragging about how eco-friendly their vehicle is, but for a buyer, for a consumer, that is not a top consideration. So, as OEMs, it's your responsibility to improve awareness among the end consumers if you want to position it as an eco-friendly vehicle. This is split between urban and rural drivers. We just wanted to understand, do city drivers have a different purchase behavior? A little bit, yes. 47% of the urban drivers, city drivers, are willing to purchase a hybrid vehicle, whereas only 29% of rural drivers are willing to do so. So what does this mean? That means the urban drivers or the city drivers are a little bit more conscious about the vehicle they drive. They feel they need to make an impact, and they feel hybrid or electric vehicles will be better environmentally. So that is why you see a higher willingness among the urban drivers, right? Again, interesting slide here. We wanted to know if there is a split by diesel drivers or petrol drivers. Not much. A petrol driver, on the left you have petrol drivers, and on the right you have diesel drivers. So the petrol drivers want to buy a petrol hybrid. That means people who are currently driving a petrol engine in the future would like to buy a petrol hybrid. People who are driving a diesel engine currently would like to buy a diesel hybrid. That means people have a level of trust, a level of comfort with their current fuel, but they are willing to consider a hybrid version of the same fuel. There is very little switch between diesel and gasoline, but there is a switch between conventional fuel towards hybrid or electric. That's the key point. Very, very important slide. How much are the customers willing to pay at the end of the day, right? If you see the slide, about 25% on an average are willing to pay a high price point for a hybrid vehicle. That means people know that a hybrid technology is expensive, it has its benefits, and they are willing to pay. The average they are willing to pay is close to about 6,000 euros. This is the mean. That's a significant amount, that's $7,000 to $8,000 over and above. So this is the premium they are willing to pay. $7,000 over a conventional fueled vehicle. So that means people are willing to pay money if they feel that the technology is worth it, right? So that is what OEMs need to keep in mind. We've seen a lot of OEMs complain, our technology is expensive, will people pay for it? Of course people will pay for it as long as you make them see the benefits. That's the important point. So we'll look at a similar slide for electric vehicle. What we saw now was for hybrids. Now we see for electrics. Slightly lower percentage of people. We saw 41% of the people were willing to buy a hybrid, whereas just about 23% are willing to buy a pure electric vehicle, right? So when you shift from hybrid to electric, people get scared, right? Again, what kind of electric vehicle technology? Range extenders. Yesterday we saw Volt, right? We had a presentation from GM who spoke about the Chevy Volt, right, as a range extender vehicle. That is the most preferred electric vehicle technology among the consumers. Why is that? Because people know that if my electric battery runs out of juice, there is always an engine that is going to give me the power. It's that comfort, it's that feeling of security that the people have when they think about electric, range extended electric vehicles. As you can see, a fully battery electric vehicle is the least preferred among the three technologies. Range anxiety. Although a lot of OEMs today have vehicles that have probably 250 or even 300 kilometers of driving range on a single charge, in people's minds, that is not enough. They still feel, what if I get stranded on the road? What will happen to me? Right? So range anxiety is still the #1 challenge for all OEMs today who manufacture electric vehicles. Right? Again, so we wanted to know if there is a difference between petrol drivers and diesel drivers. Apparently not much. Irrespective of what fuel they drive, petrol or diesel, they still want a range extended vehicle. Right? A vehicle with a range extender. Right? So that is still the preferred choice among electric vehicle technology, which is why you see a lot of OEMs investing on range extended electric vehicles, or EREVs as you may call it. Willingness to pay again here. The average money a consumer is willing to pay is more than a hybrid, about $9,000 to $10,000. Again, that's a significant amount. A consumer is willing to pay $9,000 to $10,000 as premium over and above a conventional vehicle, diesel or gasoline, for electric vehicle. Surprisingly here, SUV drivers are willing to pay the highest. Again, it's the perception. A lot of SUV drivers today feel that guilt of driving a fuel guzzler. So they are willing to make a bigger jump. They are willing to pay a bit more as well, right? When they buy an alternative fuel vehicle. Couple of slides on what people think about OEMs, right? As you can see here, the red bar was the latest one, 2015. The purple colored bar was a study done in 2012. The gray bar, 2010, and the last bar was 2008. So what we've done is we've tried to see how perceptions have evolved over a period of 7 to 8 years, how perceptions have changed, right? As you can see, in this edition, Audi is on top, right? Why is that? People think that Audi makes the most environmentally friendly vehicle among the premium OEMs, right? If you look at how OEMs today have positioned themselves in the market, if you see their taglines, if you see their advertisements, if you see their marketing campaign, you can clearly see how they are trying to position themselves. Audi's tagline today is, if you know a little bit of German, Vorsprung durch Technik. That means lead through technology. It's very clear there that they are looking to position themselves as a technology leader. If you look at BMW, it's efficient dynamics or sheer driving pleasure, right? So they are focusing more on the driving experience. So in people's minds, it plays a very important role. People classify OEMs, Audi, technology, BMW, driver's car, right? So in people's minds, how the OEMs position themselves in terms of the products and technologies is going to play a role in them choosing that brand or choosing a vehicle or choosing a product. Similarly for mass market OEMs, I mean, it's no surprise that Toyota is on top. I mean, Toyota has always been on top. It was in 2014, last time when we did as well, it was high. But do you see this huge drop that happened from 2008 to 2010? Toyota had 29% approval ratings, it dropped to 17 in a period of 2 years here. If you remember in 2009, there was a huge recall of Toyota vehicles. But it's a completely different matter that the recall was because of safety-related issues. It had nothing to do with environmentally friendly technologies, had nothing to do with electrics, had nothing to do with hybrid vehicles. But still, in people's minds, it shook the trust they had in Toyota, which is why there was a huge drop. So, the bottom line is, irrespective of what the reason for a recall is, it's the trust factor that plays an important role. So you could have a technology here that had nothing to do with recall, but still people thought it is not an environmentally friendly vehicle anymore. So again, I go back to the point which I made earlier, improving awareness, increasing awareness among the end consumers is still the biggest challenge for everybody today. Right? So, to summarize, as I said, car is not just a product anymore, it's evolving to become a service. Ownership models are changing. Customers are not interested in just pure purchase and maintain ownership models. They want a car to be a part of a multimodal mobility solution. So OEMs are offering subscriptions. Movell from Daimler, Mu by Peugeot. They are subscription services. That means if you subscribe, you have access to different forms of transport. Cars, bicycles, trains, buses, and even ferries in certain countries. So subscription-based services are going to become important. So car is not just a product anymore, it's becoming a service. Hybrids, we saw, and electric vehicles are becoming popular. At least people want to buy them, but there is still a challenge. They still don't understand. They still don't know what a hybrid vehicle is, what an electric vehicle is. So it's up to the OEMs, it's up to us to improve awareness among the end consumers and make them understand that they don't have to worry about range anxiety anymore, right? And last but not the least, product portfolio and mobility solutions, right? As I said, different stakeholders are coming into the intelligent mobility or the integrated mobility ecosystem. It is not just OEMs, suppliers, and consumers, right? We have utility providers, as I said, regulatory authorities, transport authorities, police can play an important part as well in the intelligent mobility ecosystem. So, multiple stakeholders is going to be the order of the day going forward, not just OEMs and suppliers, right? So, that brings me to the end of my presentation. Of course, as I said, we do intend to have a similar voice of customer study in this region as well. So hopefully, it will throw up some interesting results. I'm happy to take questions. I'd love to work with you as well. If you're interested in the voice of customer for this region, please feel free to let me know.
Thank you very much. Okay, have we got any questions for Kaushik as well? Yes, two questions in the middle there.
Hello, hi. Very interesting presentation, thank you. I'm interested, actually I have two questions if you don't mind. The first one is I'm very interested in the willingness of customers to pay. It's slightly contradictory to the research that we've done, so I'm really interested in finding out a bit more. I can't remember the exact figure, but I think you mentioned something like 20% of customers were willing to pay more money for an RE or EV. If that is the case, then why have Audi e-tron, why the Chevy Volt and other vehicles on the market haven't been selling as much as the figures would suggest? First question. And second question is, you considered the willingness of people to buy these vehicles. Have you also looked at the relationship that availability of charging infrastructure has on that purchasing behavior? Thank you.
Perfect, thank you very much. I'll try to answer the first question. What we see here is an indicator, right? So we have seen that there is a willingness to pay. However, when the actual consumers go to the point of purchase, let's say a dealership or visit a retailer or so on, there are still questions in their mind, right? Which is what I was trying to say, that we need to bridge the gap from what we see here to the actual purchase, and that bridging the gap involves improving awareness, this range anxiety. How will be the battery cost when I have to replace my battery in the next, 3 to 4 years after usage? So will the battery costs be high? Are there financing options? Can I lease batteries? So what you see here, what I presented, is still an indicator, but when it comes to the actual point of purchase, we might not see such optimistic numbers, right? So that answers the question. Sorry, your second question was, I'm sorry, I just forgot that.
Okay. It was about charging infrastructure.
Charging
the willingness of people to buy these vehicles.
Yes.
In an absence.
Yes. The charging infrastructure also is important, because from what we've seen in our customer research, they feel that, okay, when I buy or purchase electric or a hybrid vehicle, at least for their homes, the charging infrastructure comes with it. Right? So they are happy about that. Most of the people, I'm sorry, I haven't presented the entire study in the interest of time. I just presented some very key findings. We had charging infrastructure as part of the study as well. So we understood, we tried to see where people would like charging infrastructure going forward. So we had options like at their workplace, at a shopping complex, when they're going shopping in a mall or something. So people do understand that there are different possibilities for charging infrastructure, and they understand that having or owning an electric vehicle has its challenges. So they are aware that the possibilities are limited at the moment, but they completely understand that home, workplace, and malls or shopping complexes, these are the 3 important points for charging infrastructure, and they're happy about that.
I think another question in the middle. Yeah. Another question there? Or was it the same question? Okay. We're almost out of time, but I just have one question for you. In terms of the research you did, isn't this just about status?
Is it
about status? So, we know that people buy cars for many, many different reasons, but a lot of it is actually around the car as a status symbol. So you buy based on brand, and in some cases you actually buy based on colour or the shape of the car.
Absolutely.
In your research, did you ask any questions around the way that if you buy an electric vehicle,